Hi everybody, I'm Chase, that is EK, and we are bad at magic. Which is true, but not really, but kind of, but sorta. Anyways, this is a podcast where we talk about how even though we are kind of sort of professionals at magic, specifically Commander, we're also really bad at magic. Because the first step to being kind of good at something is being really bad at something. This episode is our first episode, and we wanted to kick things off by talking about how to do the thing in Commander and what happens if you can't do it. So, enjoy! Garbage place. Garbage dumpster nightmare place. When I go back there and visit, there's a second Starbucks, and people who have moved there from my old Starbucks, and when I see them, they're like, Chase, oh my God, have you heard? The old Starbucks is awful. And I'm like, tell me something I didn't know. It was horrible. Anyway.
Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this cool
Wow.
fun thing.
Okay, Rat.
Yeah, let's talk about this. You make those references. I don't watch Good Mythical Morning.
I did for a while. I got like really into it.
Yeah.
I honestly, I was just watching it to see how they edited the show.
That's kind of what I do now with content too. I'm like, my favorite thing is to find little jump cuts. And I'm like, you did a jump cut there, friend. Anyways, let's talk about this thing that you found, because it is not something that when I saw it, I was like, oh, cool, an interesting thing. I did not think any more about it until you showed it to me.
The what?
The tweet.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this tweet is from Sam Black. And for those that don't know, Sam Black is actually like one of the most casual Commander players out there and plays more Commander than like most Commander players combined. And it goes something like, an observation about a thing that seems normal in Commander players that I never saw in tournaments. I built this deck to do a thing. You stopped me. I can't win, so I concede. For me, that's where the game would get interesting, because you still have creatures and spells and everything like that. You can make it happen. He follows it up by saying, I know some people just want to do a thing, but it's hard for me to relate to only wanting to win that way and not sometimes finding out what else your deck can do.
So I think my initial take when I saw this was my brain immediately went to salt, because like, I don't know, when I build, I really try not to be a salty person, especially since I stream now, and like you don't want to be like publicly salty, but like sometimes when I have like a deck that does like one major thing and it gets stopped, I just want to like scoop, because I'm like so salty about it. I'm like, man, the one thing I wanted to do, now I can't do it. And so it kind of makes me...
It's especially demoralizing, like if you hadn't done anything in the game up until then, too.
Yes.
Yeah, if you've been doing stuff the whole game and then like your one like big thing gets stopped, I think that's a little bit different than not doing anything at all.
I feel that way a lot, like with like my Chandra deck, because like back in the day, it didn't used to have like what I consider like plan Bs and plan Cs and stuff. The main goal was to ultimate my Commander, deal a butt ton of damage to everybody, and then they get an emblem, and then they keep taking damage on upkeep. But Planeswalkers are so fragile. Fun fact, if you did not know that. Little known magic fact. So when my Commander would get knocked down in loyalty and I could not alter, I was like, well, I'm doing nothing. And I would feel so sad.
Expecting to ultimate a Planeswalker in the first place is magical Christmas land. Like, you play a Planeswalker assuming that ability is never going to happen.
I live in magical Christmas land.
You don't play a Planeswalker for the ultimate. You play it for the other abilities.
Nope. I play it for the ultimate. That's the whole deck is the ultimate. I build poorly.
You do have like other ways of like getting there though.
Yeah.
Or
now I do.
Yeah. It's funny, like when you said, oh, like my Chandra deck this, my Chandra deck that, and I'm like, Chase, I don't think I've ever seen your deck win the same way twice ever. Like it always does a different thing every game, almost like you designed it to do that.
Well, it took me a while to do that because originally I got so tired of like not being able to do like the one thing that I was like, okay, maybe maybe I could be a little flexible. And so I call them alt win conditions, but you and I have had this conversation where like when we think of alt win cons, we think of stuff like Helix Pinnacle or like
Mm-hmm.
Azer's Elecutors or whatever.
Yeah.
I think of alt win cons as like my deck has a thing and then my deck has like other things, like plans B through F or whatever.
Yeah. Those cards don't necessarily say win the game, but
Yeah.
they are another way to win the game. You know.
Yes, exactly. Like in Chandra, I was like, wow, gee willikers. Running a running a deck with only 12 creatures and like 17 planeswalkers sure is a little rough for me. Maybe I should find other ways to fix this. So like I added in Sarkhan the Masterless as like an alt win con, quote unquote, a plan B, quote unquote, because
Hey,
he turns all my planeswalkers into creatures.
so you said you only had 12 creatures in the deck, but you really have 29. That's pretty
I
big
mean, yeah.
brain.
I mean, if I get Sarkon out, yes. It's great.
You also have Luxior in that deck too,
Yeah,
which
that was an
I
exciting
have
addition.
died to commander damage from Luxior,
To be fair, you let me. You
but it
let
was
me.
cool.
It was cool.
Out of context, the edit on that was amazing. No one knew.
No one knew.
That clip went viral,
And now
so
they know.
yeah.
The
Now
little
they know to
behind the
watch out
scenes.
for Luxior.
Luxior is so good. And it's actually I also found out that Luxior is also a form of protection in Chandra. I know I'm getting us off topic
Hmm.
on specifically my Chandra deck, but like it was a way to protect my commander because it doesn't make your commander a planeswalker anymore. It makes it a creature, but it can still activate its loyalty abilities as though it were a planeswalker. So it was another way to like add protection, which was also another way to achieve me doing the thing, which is super helpful.
I mean, it just in general, like one of those things that a lot of people will ask me is, how do I make my deck do the thing a lot more
Yeah.
often? And one of the like tutors withstanding, because that's a thing that you can do. You
Hmm.
could also just protect the things that you are playing in the first place.
Yeah.
You play your heroic interventions, you play your Teferi's protections, and I don't know, your dark steel plate if you're playing like a commander damage strategy, like
Hmm.
just making sure that the stuff you do cast either isn't countered or sticks on the board. That's a pretty easy way of making sure that you can do something.
And I mean, we've talked about I talk about this a lot on on my deck building stream actually. Like another way to like ensure that you're gonna do the thing, and obviously this varies for commander decks. If I'm being completely honest, but redundancy, I really like redundancy, and I know a lot of people are like, why are you running like 5 instances of this? You can cut one, and I'm like, well, yeah, but you have to remember you're in a card pool of like 99 or 98 if you have partners. So your card pool, it's literally like a drop in a bucket. Like I've had people tell me like run a counter spell, and I'm like, well, if we're gonna run, I want to run at least 4 more or
Yeah.
5 more so I can draw into it consistently.
It gets complicated because then you're saying, well, you got to cut meat so that you can have this, and you got to cut the cool card so you can have the not so cool card that makes the other cool card work.
Mm-hmm.
You're telling people at that point to cut pack cards for like optimal cards, and that's not always going to fly. But at the end of the day, like advice is still just advice. You don't have to listen to it.
Mm-hmm.
But realistically speaking, like consistency does matter. And the nature of Commander is that it's inconsistent. You can make it as consistent as can be, but there's a fine line between, doing that and like the true spirit of the format, which is like embracing chaos and
Mm-hmm.
randomness and the fun that you can find in that.
I try to avoid like running tutors because I know you brought up tutors. Like that's like a definite way to like make sure your deck does the thing. But I find that to me, and this is no way against anyone who plays tutors. If you like tutors, dope. I run tutors in some of my decks, but like I find it to be less thrilling when I
Yeah.
tutor for it than if I like naturally draw for it. So like example on my deck building stream, I built the new melding Urza commander. And we put in a couple tutors in there to get the Might and Weak Stone so that we can meld our commander and get him out pretty quick. I played my land for turn, and then on turn 2 I drew my card and I drew the Might and Weak Stone, and I was like, "Oh my god, yes, never didn't have it." Like, it was very exciting because I didn't have to tutor for it. But like tutoring for it, it's like, okay, yeah, I tutor, I get it to hand, or I get it to top of library. And like it gets you to do the thing, but like the concept of the thing I think is more exciting if you kind of luck into it than if
Yeah.
you kind of manufacture that yourself. And like you can manufacture it, but I just enjoy it more the other way.
I think there's something to be said there. Like, your deck should have multiple the things at that
Yeah.
rate. Like if you are all in on one singular thing, like yeah, run tutors. If you want the one specific thing to happen, like if you want to meld Urza every time, if you
Mhm.
want to make Brazella every game that you're playing with Bruna and Gisela, run all the different ways to make that happen. Like that is the thing that your deck wants to do, and that's what you want. Make it happen as much as possible.
Mhm.
If you don't want to do that, run a couple different things. Like I'm going to keep harping on your Chandra deck. Like
Mhm.
you have Luxior, that's a thing. You have Chandra emblems with Fiery Emancipation, that's another thing. You
Mhm.
have Sarkin, another thing. I I've been harping on my Jetmir deck lately,
Mhm.
which is like animated lands with Myriad. I don't need to give my lands Myriad to like do a thing. Like I can
Mhm.
play Liege of the Tangle and make them all 8/8s. I can play
Yeah.
Raga Draga and have all of my lands be 4/4s. Like there's
Mhm.
little varying degrees of things that you can build into your decks that you can derive fun from.
I I I definitely think that it's harder with like certain commanders than
Yeah.
others
Oh
because
yeah.
so many commanders that are like so linear that like that's it. Like that's their thing. And there are other commanders that are open. So like for Locust God, I'll use Locust God as an example cuz like he has like two things he can do. Um
The text
little,
box is super straightforward.
yeah. Wheel, get bugs, swing, win. Now, you can run other win cons in there. Like I run as my plan Bs and Cs. Um like Lab Man. I run Lab Man and Jace. I have an infinite combo in there. I have and originally actually my deck didn't originally have this, but because I the deck is so straightforward, people know where to like nuke it so that it
Yeah.
kind of falls apart, that I actually as a as a backup plan, which is perfect for what we're talking about, I put this in there as another way to do the thing. I put in a Strixhaven Stadium because I'm like, cool, boom, it is literally a baked in like, oh, if I don't have Locust God out, as long as I have some bodies, I can build up and make at least one person lose the game, and eventually pick people off one by one. But like I didn't have that in the beginning, and so I kept on going. Okay, well, Locust God is like now 13 mana. I can't cast him because I'm
To be
broke.
fair, you also did have that deck before Strixhaven was released,
I
so
did,
it makes sense that you didn't have Strixhaven Stadium in the deck for a while.
yeah. It was a hard sell for me though. I was like, I don't want
Yeah.
to run it.
I look at a card like Locust God, and
Yeah.
like you said, Locust God just says draw cards, get bugs, go swing. And
Mhm.
I look at a card like Samut that literally just says your creatures have haste. You can tap her and untap something. There is a huge world of
Mhm.
difference between a card like that and an
Yeah.
open-ended card that is more built around what's in its 99 than what's in the
Mhm.
command zone. Like
Yes.
you could even use like Chulane and Corvold. I know everyone always talks about Chulane and Corvold as like the generic do everything commanders, but it's
Mhm.
kind of true. Like your deck, I wouldn't say necessarily builds itself, but building the deck is immensely easier than building Samut or building like Chandra.
Yeah. I mean, there's a clear path.
Yeah.
Like you go, okay, I know I need to sack stuff. If I'm gonna sack stuff in Corvold, I know I'm gonna need a jury. I know I'm gonna
Hmm.
need a mayhem devil or stuff like that. Like you already have like key pieces that are baked into there. But like if you have Simut is a great example, or even I have a Cedrus deck. and people expect me to do one thing with it, but I don't do the thing that people expect me to do, which is very
You're
interesting.
not doing mean stuff reanimator, like
Yeah.
big bombs.
Yeah, I got hard targeted at a pod at my LGS. John and Jacob, I'm watching you. They're like, we expected you to like get out Eldrazi, and I'm like, this is a treasures deck, gentlemen. This is just me playing with cryptocurrency.
To be fair,
Hmm.
that Cedrus deck of yours is absolutely absurd, and I've
It
never
is.
not seen it do the thing.
It's fun.
But that's because your thing is literally just make a lot of mana and do something with that mana.
Well, that's
The bar is a lot lower for doing the thing than other decks.
Well, that's true because my thing is treasure, and treasure was literally nothing, and now it's this big thing. So, like, also, like, choosing your accessibility to the thing, I also think
Yeah.
is a very important thing because, like, treasures is easy because you have Dockside, boom. I'm not in white with Cedrus, you have Smothering Tide, though. You can do Treasures in Greed, Bootlegger, Stash, Old Gnawbone. Like, there's, like, if you want to do a treasure theme, that's so much easier to achieve the thing than if you were like, I want to animate my blood tokens. Those are two completely different things.
I feel called out right now because my things are usually like 10 to 15 mana to
Yeah.
start. But I also run like 25 pieces of ramp in all of my decks.
Yeah, I've noticed that. You're a green boy.
Because I know, like, hey, if I love doing big mana stuff, I need a lot
Yeah.
of mana. So I'm
Mhm.
going to dedicate a lot of slots in my deck to like
Mhm.
making sure that I have the ability to do the thing in the first place. And that's actually like not something that's unreasonable to think about either. Like, you know, how many lands are you running in a deck? How much ramp are you running?
Mhm.
How much card draw are you running to even like get to the thing in your deck
Preparation.
in the
Yeah,
first
you
place? Like
need that.
you can't have all steak without sizzle. Like the grill still has to be hot for that steak to cook.
I like this cooking metaphor.
I'm
I just
hungry,
recently
okay?
learned. I just ate actually, okay, I spent $14 on a burger and it was cold when I got home and I reheated it and it was garbage and I wasted $14. I'm really sad about it. But when
I
it,
feel even worse now.
I know, so I'm really bummed about it. I'm like, that was $14. Could have bought a Blu-ray. But uh, I feel like when it comes to like the thing being like prepared to like achieve your thing, and also I guess like this is also maybe like a combo searcher conversation too, I suppose. But like how many pieces you need to
Yeah.
do to make the thing. I mean, oh, we talked about redundancy, but like streamlining that process, I think, is also very interesting, or diversifying it as well. Because like for instance in Cedrus, I like to win not by sacking things like with like Disciple of the Vault or Mayhem Devil. I like to win by animating my treasure tokens and then swinging out. And there are two ways to do this, and I run both of those ways because I want to make sure that I hit that. So it's like Cyberdrive Awakener and Rise and Shine, and just swing.
Hey, I wonder who gave you that idea, by the way.
I don't remember, but I feel like it's probably you.
It was.
I have a
That
goldfish
was
brain.
on my list of hey, you're not running these cards in your deck, but they would be
Yeah.
really funny.
I mean, it was, and it's good because, fun fact, Cyberdrive Awakener is in fact a blue Craterhoof behemoth, and I will fight anybody who disagrees with me on that.
That turns all your junk into nonsense.
You
It's like what
mean it
four?
turns
They're 4/4s and flying. Like
and flying?
I know Rise and Shine is just 4/4s.
Yeah, Rise and Shine is just 4/4s. Although I will say I like Rise and Shine a lot less now because I thought it was I thought it was an until end of turn ability. Turns out they stay 4/4s forever, and I didn't know that.
That's why it's good, in my
Yeah.
opinion. Now, Cyberdrive
Those are
Awakener is
boys.
only till end of turn, but
Yeah,
chances are, like you said, it's blue crater huff. You're trying to win right there, so
yeah,
it doesn't need to last.
I agree.
So what do you do if your deck isn't doing the thing or your thing gets stopped? Like how are you approaching that game or that like social dynamic from there? Because I think that's something that not a lot of people think about.
Mhm. So first I panic, and then I go through all what is it, 5 or 7 stages of grief.
Yeah.
Um,
Everything
you know,
that can go wrong has gone wrong. Where do
yeah,
you
I
go from
bargain,
here?
I cry, I accept, stuff like that.
Mhm.
Um, but for me, it's a couple things because like mid game, what I'd really try to do is I just try to like, I try to like think of the things in my deck that I know can do a lot or can it or do a lot of damage or maybe disassemble something on their board. It really depends on like what has stopped me from doing my thing because in Chandra, for instance, really good example, Blessed Sanctuary. If my opponent has a Blessed Sanctuary, I'm shut down and I don't really have um a way to deal non-combat damage. So I'm like, okay, what can I do? I'm like, I could, just do old-fashioned combat, which is why I put in Sarkon. Was like because my deck has so few creatures, you know, um move to combat. In all honesty, I feel like this step for me happens after the game is over because then I can assess my deck list and I go, okay, I got hosed, I got tanked. What can I
Yeah.
do to prevent this in the future? And like I try to find cards that like serve me a function or serve me a purpose in my list for the 90% of the time and the 10% of the time where my thing gets shut off or hosed down, they're there as a backup. And that's kind of what I like to do is just kind of tweak my list and deck building strategies.
Do you ever feel like you over-engineer though? Because I know I feel guilty of doing
No,
that fairly
I
often.
don't. I it's weird because when I deck build on stream, I get a lot of people and this is why I like deck building on stream because it
You get
reminds
other
me that
people's experiences, right?
yes. Oh my god, when I was building one deck, somebody was like, "You need to run oh my god, I think it was like Void Mirror." It's like, "Why do I need to run Void Mirror?" And the person was like, "Oh, well, my meta has a huge, pool of Eldrazi." I'm like, "Okay, mine definitely doesn't." But it's interesting that yours does because, fun fact, people exist outside of our perspectives. And I know that might sound weird, but like I always forget that there are other people in other pods and metas and stuff.
The Twitch, like, I'm pretty sure at this point, like, pretty much the only commander that a lot of us creators play these days is on stream or
Mhm.
with other streamers and friends of streamers off stream, but it's still the
Yeah.
same decks that we'd play on streams. And we're gonna build our decks a lot different than the average person at a shop. So
Yeah.
it's a good reality check.
A very good example of this, I was playing at my LGS because here's what I like to do. I like to play at my card shop at least once a week. And, yada, 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 work life separation makes it very difficult. But,
It,
um,
it's kind of hard when your free time and hobby is also your
the,
job.
yeah, explaining that to my family is really weird. But
I
I,
work in
um,
entertainment.
I work in entertainment. But this kid I was playing against was playing his Chatterfang deck, and I'm like, "Ooh, cool squirrels, love it." And then we were playing, and on turn 3, he dropped out a smokestack, and I was like, "What?"
I don't think I've ever seen this card on Twitch.
I know, and so I was like, I have to remember, like, my perspective is largely shaped by what I see on Twitch because and this is gonna make me seem super out of touch, but like because I stream on Twitch, but because like my a lot of my friends happen to be streamers who stream on Twitch or who I've met through Twitter in the community, my play group are these people. So I tend to like, kind of shape that around there. And like spell table in itself has kind of shaped the way we play the game. Like you
Oh
don't want to
yeah.
see opposition agents on spell table. And you don't see send triplets on spell table.
We're just like not gonna see certain cards. So, all the content that we make or, the decks that we build are building just pretending certain cards don't exist.
Yeah.
As a content creator, what's a board wipe? Like what's a counter spell?
I I do build I will say I do build with those in mind,
Yeah.
for that adjustment, but when it comes to, like, doing the thing, it's so difficult because and I think this is also kind of, like, a thing that you have to learn, the more you deck build is finding a way to balance, what I consider to be, like I don't like using the word staple pieces, I don't like that term. I would say, kinda like your commander tool bag. Like, for each color
The cards that you need to just make sure that it doesn't implode. Your deck doesn't
yeah.
implode.
So, like, if I'm in white, no matter what, I'm always running in a Chroma's Memorial. I love a Chroma's Memorial. I think it's amazing. I think it's helped. Same thing with Teferi's, not a Chroma's Memorial, a Chroma's Will.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go. Or Teferi's Protection.
That's a colorless card. Like, you
I
can run
know.
that
Can
in
you
any
tell I'm
deck.
all together and present? It's great.
Can you tell that you don't play decks like that?
I don't, because I don't. I I don't. I typically don't tend to do creature focused decks, and that's something that you love to do. So it's
It's
kind of
like,
interesting.
I got one look and that's it. It's
I got one
creatures.
look, and that's it. It's creatures, and creatures, and creatures. Oh my god!
I feel like you're subtweeting my Primal Surge deck right now, and
It's your Primal Surge deck. It's your
it's got
Stamets
64
deck.
creatures, okay? Like,
It's
there
your
are
mix.
more creatures in it now.
64.
It's
There's
up now.
64.
64 creatures, 35 lands.
I think if you took your Primal Surge deck and you put it next to my Chandra deck, I think you could very much encapsulate our personalities. Like one deck to describe your personality with that.
Yeah, I mean, I've built my brand off of being big and dumb,
Yeah.
and also knowing what's going to beat my deck, so I know what to have
Mhm.
to pay attention to.
So I want to ask you a question because I know in your
Yeah,
Primal Surge deck, I think that isn't that your only like instant or sorcery in there? You said in your Primal Surge deck is
it's the only spell in the deck that's not a permanent.
there we go. Not yeah.
Yeah, there
So
it
what
is.
happens? What happens? Because this has happened on our on I think on my stream before, at least someone else's.
Hap-
Where Primal Surge is just
the
gone.
greatest instance of it has happened on your stream.
Yeah, when Primal Surge is gone. What happens then? Because that's like your thing. Is like
Yeah.
Primal Surge, dump a bunch of stuff out,
You
win.
don't just dump a bunch of stuff out, you dump the entire deck in order as one action that cannot be interacted with.
Yeah.
Because the whole spell resolves all at once, and then all the triggers go on the stack. It's not as the card gets into play, you resolve
Yeah.
each ETB individually. The game like takes account of, okay, when did this enter, when did that enter, did this enter before that entered? Like,
Hmm.
it it ends the game, but if you try and explain how it ends the game or why it ends the game, you end up with a laundry list. So yeah, every card in the entire deck enters play, and then something happens.
But what happens when that Primal Surge is gone? Because it's happened.
Funny you should ask. Just because it is the card that is the main build around and the thing for the deck doesn't mean I
Mhm.
cast it very often, if like ever. It's only ever happened like 5 or 6 times. It just so happens that it happens on camera every time.
Yeah,
Because
that's the beauty.
that's the thing. I'm gonna play to the out of the thing for camera.
Mhm. Yeah.
But most of the time you're looping really good green creatures around each other, like Selvala and Temur Sabertooth and Apex Devastator
Are
and
you telling
Zakama
me?
Primal Calamity.
Are you telling me that your deck's plan B is just be green? Because I
Yeah.
feel like that's what you're saying. It's just for it to be green. Oh my
Yes,
god.
okay, it is to be green, but B, it's just make as much mana as you can and figure it out.
That's being green. It's just to tap, put stuff out there and swing. That's very good.
If you have Selvala and Temur Sabertooth, if you can make 7 mana, you can
Yeah.
infinitely replay Selvala, tap her twice, make a lot of mana, and then you can just bounce any creature you want and get into like infinite ETBs. Like, you can make enough mana to recast Zakama over and over again and untap your
Mhm.
lands. And when you untap your lands, you get to have more mana to do more stuff. Or like, you
Yeah.
use Sisay a bunch of times, or you use Selvala Explorer Returned and mill out your opponents when you have a prime or when you have a Platinum Angel in play. Like,
Yeah.
when
I
your deck is like so many one-ofs and you have the ability to see a lot of your deck, you can
mhm.
just have a gazillion different things and a gazillion different outs at any one time.
Oh
You know,
yeah, like Oh,
I'm also
sorry.
running Survival of the Fittest and
Yeah.
Fauna Shaman and Sisay and stuff like that. So I
Mhm.
am seeing the particular pieces that I want
Mhm.
more often than other decks might. But, you know, when you're not running instants, when you're not running sorceries and stuff like that, all of your interaction is on a creature, or it's on an enchantment, or it's attached to a land. Like, you have to be a little bit more creative with how you find things. So there's a lot more homework that goes into the deck even.
I would say like that kind of reminds me of like my Alibu deck. It's Boros, but I do have access to a lot of top deck manipulation, so I can really quite literally pick and choose my avenues
You have top deck manipulation dot deck in the command zone.
in the command zone, which again
Yeah.
kind of goes back to what we were saying about like commanders. Some are easier to build than others. Like
hmm
Alibu itself, in my opinion, is a very open ended commander because you have all of that top deck manipulation.
I mean, it also just says, hey, play artifacts. I don't care what kind of artifacts you play. So
I don't care.
do what you want, but just
Mhm.
play artifacts. And like,
Yeah.
there's so many different ways to play artifacts. Like, you can do artifact creatures, you could do untappy Magda stuff. Like, you could
Golem tribal.
do, yeah,
You could.
mirrors, what
Mirrors.
what have you. Like, when you have an open-ended theme, like just artifacts, just enchantments,
Mhm.
just play creatures, or like, I don't know, we haven't really given blue a lot of love. Like, just play instants and sorceries and sling
Yeah.
spells. Like,
Mhm.
you can do what you want. But when you're open-ended like that, you almost have a paralysis of choice.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big hump that a lot of people have to get over.
I think so too. Like and also like the concept of like is your thing I would say largely considered to be unpopular. And when I say that, I'm going to use my Albu deck as a reference again. I have Albu wins. For those of you who don't know, Albu says whenever an artifact creature attacks, you deal X amount of damage to any target where X is the number of like tapped artifacts you control, essentially. Um, so that's a lot of non-combat damage that you're dealing. So with Alibu, um, I run Mycosynth Lattice. And because I was running Mycosynth Lattice, I was like, you know what? Another way for me to kind of prevent myself from losing is I'll put a Karn Lock in there, or I'll do a Vandal Blast, or I'll do a Hellkite Tyrant. And that can be a little salt inducing, but like that's one of the things. Or Infect. I put a Grafto Exoskeleton on Alibu. I swing, and if I have 10 tapped artifacts, you're done. You know, game over. I win.
That's how you won your game on extra turns, right?
It is how I won my game on extra turns. Although I will say it was a little bit snazzier on extra turns because I swung at somebody with a blight steel that was unblockable, and I copied Alibu's infected trigger with a ceramic resonator. So everybody at the table died to infect.
See, like, that's cool though. That, like,
It's cool, but it's salty. I can respect that it's salty.
I mean, I think that's a lot more interesting than, like, I don't know, Blight Mamba getting in there 5 turns in a row and killing somebody. Like, at least everyone's dying at the same time and not having to sit around. Like, if you're at a table and like your deck's just misfiring, like you're not doing the thing, like you're not actively participating in the game, sitting for that like 75 to 80 minutes,
Mhm.
it can be miserable at
Yeah.
times. So, because Commander is a multiplayer format,
Mhm.
you can't exactly scoop it up at any time yourself. Like, it's usually an all or nothing sort of thing.
I mean, and I think that's kind of interesting, like in Sam's tweet specifically saying, you know, like I built this deck to do a thing, you stop me. I can't win, I concede. I feel like well, conceding can also lead to a lot of feels bads thing in the moments. I actually think regardless, even if you're hosed and you don't have a way to figure it out, playing that game and still losing, you learn something from that. There's something to learn in losing. And that's why I really like Commanders. I like to lose because if I lose in a cool way, holy crap, that's a cool story I can tell. And B, I can learn something about my deck, or I can learn something about a misplay I did, or the way I tap my mana, or, I realize that, Sundial of the Infinite doesn't really work with my commander like I thought I did. Like, I'm constantly learning the thing about my decks whenever I play. That Commander is literally not even Commander. Magic is one of the hardest card games, the most complex card games in the world. You're
I
going to
mean,
constantly be learning.
it's not even just the most complicated card game. It's the most complicated game
Yeah.
in the world. Like there's a reason why there is like no good like AI at Magic,
Mhm.
because it's too complicated for
That's a lie.
computers.
That's Rebel. Rebel's good at Magic.
She is the closest thing to it.
How dare you forget about Rebel?
Oh,
I'm
sorry,
sorry.
Rebel. I'll give Jaggy some pets,
And then
and
Hatsune
make it up
Miku
to you.
also played.
It's true.
Don't forget Hatsune Miku.
Oh, like
Oh,
even like traditional game theory literally cannot explain Magic up to a certain point, especially
yeah.
Commander, because Commander's so malleable because of four players. That same thing with poker. Like math and science doesn't explain bluffing or anything like that, and that's that. Come to think of it, that's actually like a really interesting way to look at like how to get out of the hole of not doing the thing.
Yeah.
Most of the time, like if you're not participating in the game, there's very few players who are just going to kick you while you're down. Like
Yeah.
if you're going to get hurt any further in that game, it's going to be accidental or incidental. Like it's
Yeah.
going to be, hey, Jeremy is popping off, like I need to cast this Wrath of God and wrath his board. So when it gets to your turn, don't play a
Don't play
creature. Like
anything. Yeah.
play the setup enchantment so that you can get back into this game instead of the
I've done
creature,
that
because it's just going to
before.
die. It's just
Yeah.
going to die. Like there are so many people out there that like they want you to play the game. Like they want
Yeah.
you to have fun. Like why else would you be there? So they're not necessarily going to go out of their way to like help
Mhm.
set you up and like, give you a layup. But they're not gonna try and be out to get you. They're not gonna try and hurt you.
Yeah.
They're just not
And
gonna
I
try and
mean,
help you actively.
you can even just like use like I guess like bluffing to your advantage. Like I've done that before in a game of Commander where someone was about to swing at me with like their 8 double strike, like I think it was like Ilharg, or that it was one of the Kamigawa Neon Dynasty aura. It was like the Gruul Born, and
Oh,
they gave it double strike.
I know which one you're talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah, yeah.
The aura guy.
They gave it double strike, and it was swinging at me, and it was like at like an 8/8 or whatever. And I was like, they're like, "Okay, Chase, I'm gonna swing at you." And I looked them dead in the eyes, and I said, "If you swing at me, I'm gonna destroy your commander on my turn." And they went, "Okay, I won't." And like it also like helps to kind of like like in a sense you can also play Magic like poker, like bluff, use things to your advantage and
It's
stuff like that.
literally my Najila deck in a nutshell, which I know has gotten you good every time.
It has. Najil is very good. Najil's very interesting because her thing is so interesting. Her thing is typically one thing, but you've made it multiple different things as well.
People see surface level. Ooh, I only get warriors. Ooh, I only get extra combat steps.
Yes,
Nah,
yes, and you're
fam.
like,
It just
nope.
says if a player
Yep.
or the active player attacking does a thing, they can get things.
Hmm.
I just mean like I mean the Najila deck is basically bluffing deck because it's all
Yeah.
combat interaction. It's all it's all board interaction and
Mhm.
creating interesting board states without making interesting board states in of itself. Like Grand Melee is, a weird card. But I mean more like your comeuppance, your Ink Shield, your Illusionist Gambit, Arachnogenesis, stuff
Yeah.
like that. Like, they're in there, but are they in my hand? I've been drawing a
Hmm.
lot of cards. So, like, statistically, one might be there.
Yeah.
But if just the very idea of that card existing in my hand deters you from attacking, like,
Mhm.
cool. I have more time to keep setting up and like digging for Sun Quan so that I have some sort of way of winning the game.
Yeah. And I feel like this kind of ties back into like, you know, everything kind of comes down to like deck building. You know,
Hmm.
like in the game you can only do so much. Like you don't have a wish board that you can take from and like pull from and like, suddenly you're fine again. Like even if you end up losing and your deck doesn't do the thing, deck building those things into there, like you built that deck to have a lot of interaction and do a lot of different things, and it's literally meant to be a boxing match. It's not just you kind of doing the whatever little I don't know what it's called. I saw it in Rocky once, but
Oh,
you
oh,
know, yeah,
the speed
what
bag.
the oh yes, I in my head I was gonna call it a uvula because like cartoon characters would like do that to the uvula, but you know what I
Just-
mean.
Yeah, I do, I do.
But it
No,
all
I
comes
mean
down to deck building.
it's all about the homework. You
Yeah.
know, some homework is harder than other homework, but at the end of the day, there's doing homework and then there's practicum. Like the homework is setting up the deck in theory. Playing the
Yeah.
game is seeing what the deck does in practice, and how something is going to perform in theory is going to be different than how it does in practice. And sometimes it's the same. Sometimes it
Mm.
is what you expect, but sometimes it's also better. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that comes with time and experience. But like if you're a new player, if you had to give like one piece of advice, like how to just overnight
Mhm.
make your deck do the thing a little bit more
Mhm.
often, like what would that one bit of advice be?
I would say, be redundant, run lots of ways if possible. I know we talked about that, but I really cannot stress that enough. Be redundant. In Chandra, I have every single way possible to proliferate because that's a good way to help me achieve the thing. Like
Hmm.
build a lot of support beams for the foundation of your deck. Don't make it like six pieces to get there. Try and streamline it as you can. And if you're going to run six pieces, make sure like they all do the same thing to help you get there. It's not like, okay, I got piece A, now I just need B, C, and D, and then I'm good. Like, try and streamline it as best as you can, but also run a lot of redundancy to help you get there. You want options. Build a lot of options.
And I like in CEDH in particular, like the green CEDH decks, a lot of their combos are like one card from column A, one card from column B, one card from column C. And
Hmm.
it doesn't matter which card you have from each of those columns, if you have like
Yeah.
one of the six of them,
Mhm.
and some of the cards will be in multiple columns, and there's your like extra redundancy. You don't need like, I need exactly this card with exactly that card with exactly
Yeah.
that card. Like that's awesome. Like that is like the big thing. Like that is magical Christmas land.
Yeah.
And that might
I
not
live there.
happen as often as you'd like, but when it does, it's the coolest thing and you get the coolest story.
Oh,
But
exactly.
like my one takeaway, I should say, would be having a sense of realism. Be
Hmm.
realistic with yourself. Like if you're playing a 15 mana 6 card combo, understand that it might not happen very often.
Hmm.
But if that like makes the big nice Johnny chemicals in your brain happy, I'm not going to
Yeah.
stop you. I'm going to encourage you, if anything. But maybe have some other little things in your deck that also give you that same dopamine rush in a different
Mhm.
way.
Yeah.
Something to tide you over while you fish through your games, trying to do the one thing. Like you said earlier, yes, Primal Surge is what Primal Surge decks are built around, but
Mhm.
it's not going to happen very often. It's a 10 mana sorcery, and depending on the colors you're in, you have no way of tutoring it. Like you have to
Yeah.
find it yourself. So you're going to need other ways to like play the game and enjoy yourself and have fun, because otherwise you're just sitting there and like once every 20 games you maybe do something.
Yeah.
And that's not fun. That's not fun to just sit through 95% of your games and do nothing.
Yeah. There's a way that you can still do the thing, but still do the thing. That's the weirdest way to say it. But like you can still play the game and win without doing the thing, and you can still do the thing and
Hmm.
win the game. Like there's multiple ways to do it. You have to build in that way. And I think that's just a mindset that takes a while to learn.
And that's exactly what Sam is saying. Like when your deck isn't doing the one, like, the quote unquote one thing that your
Yeah,
deck
that
is
one right
designed to
there.
do,
Yeah.
that magical
Tip
Christmas
top.
land.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's more fun. It's more interesting to fly by the seat of your pants and just go for it. Figure it out as you go,
Oh,
because you're gonna
yes.
find it. For all you know, the thing that you figure out how to like dig yourself out of the hole might be even more fun, might be even more exciting than the thing you designed your deck to do in the first place.
Yeah. I still learn new interactions with my deck all the time because I
Hmm.
get put into that situation where I'm like, "Oh crap. I lost this. Let me see if I can climb my way out of this." And like if you do, dope. If you don't, you learn something that you have the possibility of doing it.
Like the literal first time I played Primal Surge on your stream, I
Mhm.
had Primal Surge milled. And
Yeah, I
I
remember
was
that.
I was still learning the deck at the time. I was
Mhm.
like, shoot, I don't know what to do. It's like, oh wait, I have Apex Devastator in my
Yep.
deck,
Yep.
which is a walking highlight reel. And I was like, I have a lot of mana, like some might say, an infinitely many amount of mana.
Yes.
I
It's
can
being
just
it's
play
limited.
Apex Devastator and bounce it over and over again and recast it
Mhm.
over and over again. And that's basically
Yeah.
doing Primal Surge manually
Mm.
with a 10 mana 10/10. Like you can reframe your cards in such a way that to still like find the way to do it. Or like I was playing Jetmir the other day. I was
Mhm.
testing Jetmir and I had Legion Loyalty get exiled. And like I'm not running Rift Sweeper, I'm not running Pull from Eternity to get it back. It was like
Mhm.
it's gone, it's gone. But I was like, wait, I can make all of my lands like 22/22 trample indestructible double strikers. Like I don't need to myriad 55 lands and make, you know, 15,000 damage worth of Valakut triggers to like do the thing. I can do this and like 50, 25, 25 trample lifelink double striker
Mhm.
vigilance indestructible animated lands is honestly pretty cool. Like I'm cool with that. I don't need it's nice to know that that exists because now it it means I don't have to tunnel vision on the one thing every game. Like I know this other out that I have. And
Yeah.
that just it comes with experience. It's different. It's different when you're playing a deck for the first time. Like you are so set on doing, you know, that one cool combo that you thought of. Like, think think about the first time that you played Chandra. Think about the first time you played Git Rock Monster.
Yeah.
Like how you play those decks now is completely different than you played
Oh,
them.
yes.
I don't for the first time. Heck, even like 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Heck,
I
last
mean,
month you probably played them completely different.
I did. Like in Gitrog, I found out that my Obnixilis, I think it's Obnixilis the Fallen, the one with the landfall trigger, he's a win con because I can just like scape shift
Hmm.
and get a bunch of lands and like kill somebody. Or in my
Well, welcome
Alavu deck.
to standard.
Yeah, right.
12 years ago, that was the thing.
Crazy. Or like in my Alabu deck, I was playing on the EDH Stream, and my only win con was to swing with Blightsteel, and Joey exiled it, and I was like, oh, I'm screwed. Fun fact: I had Karn the Great Creator out, and reading your card explains the card because Karn says you may choose an artifact you own from outside the game or in exile and put it
Yeah,
into your
that's like the
hand.
one application where that ability actually works in Commander.
Yeah, and my Blightsteel back, and Joey screamed, and it was great. It's just like it's a learning cycle. You learn your deck as you play it.
Hmm. You're learning how to play it better. You're learning, okay, like I'm missing this card, or I'm learning I need like two more lands, like 30,
Mhm.
35, a little bit too low.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what Sam Street is ultimately saying is like, don't give up. Keep attempting, keep learning. Even
Yeah.
if there is zero way for you to win, you end up learning something about your deck or your playstyle or maybe even your meta. And honestly,
Yeah.
that information is valuable to you as a deck builder because it can help you with not only your current deck list but also future decks that you make too.
or your other decks that you already have even too.
Yeah.
Yep. Like it's legitimately nice to know if I'm in a certain situation and I have no out, learning that you have no out is like some of the best advice that you can give yourself, or some of like the best learning that you can go through. Yeah, it kind of sucks, but learning's learning at the end of the day, and you're going to do better next time.
I think this kind of ties into to our show's unofficial motto of the first step to being sort of good at something is sucking at something.
Thanks, Jake the dog. You are
Thank you,
so
Jake.
prolific.
Yeah, just, be bad. Eventually you'll be good. All right, everybody. Thank you so very much for listening to our first episode of Bad at Magic. If you don't know who I am, my name is Chase, also known as Mana Curves. I'm a Commander content creator. I stream Paper Commander Thursdays and Sundays at 6 p.m. Eastern, and I do deck building collaboratively Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern on Twitch. I also write articles for Star City Games, and you can find me on Twitter at Mana Curves.
And I'm at EK Cards on all the things. You can support me by supporting our wonderful friends at Elder Dragon Hijinks, Casual Magic with Shivan Bot, and the Commander vs. Crew at Star City Games. You can find this podcast on all of your favorite podcast platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcast, Anchor FM, everything like that. And you can find this because you're probably watching it on YouTube right now. So don't forget to like and subscribe and do all of the things that make the dings, as our good friend Ailey would say.
Thanks, y'all.